Hello, thanks for listening to the Finance Leadership Podcast. It's the latest update and news about the Finance Leadership Programme from CIMA. It's produced by AICPA and CIMA together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. You can find out more at aicpa-cima.com. As usual, you're listening to myself, Kevin Gormley, and today I'm joined by a colleague in the UK. His name is Jason Nye. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Avid listener of the podcast. My name is Jason Nye, and I'm a senior operations manager at AICPA and CIMA, essentially really overseeing the performance of the UK and Ireland market, ensuring that our members, our students are happy with what we're delivering for them. In terms of my background, my entire, professional working career has actually been with the association. So I joined after university, joined in an admin role as a temp, planned to be with the company for a couple of weeks to a month when I first joined, ended up staying until now. I think I'm in my 16th or 17th year, so I've been there for some time. So started in admin, then I moved into student recruitment, so going out to universities, schools, colleges, working with employers to find students to go into their graduate programs. And that's where I spend the bulk of my time, 10, 11 years. Absolutely loved the role. Got to travel the UK, meet lots of students, lots of employers, and really, really enjoyed that side of the business in terms of learning about employability, supporting students in finding roles where they can undertake CIMA CGMA qualification. And then a few years ago, made the decision to change role. And that's when I came into the role that I'm in now, Senior Operations Manager. So a much broader remit, looking across the entire UK and Ireland region. And as I said, supporting our members and students.
Okay, great, Jason. I didn't realize you were in the association that long. So you're probably one of the longest serving colleagues that I've met so far, actually, in the association. So obviously, today we're here to talk about the accountancy market in the UK and about employability. So I guess from the outset, it's important that we would suggest that anyone's interested in getting into accountancy or thinking about pathways to accountancy, about the accountancy market, or considering a career. This podcast is worth listening to because obviously you have a fantastic amount of insight into what employers want, what they're looking for in terms of CVs, skill sets, behaviors, which are obviously very important now. And we're trying to tap into that knowledge to give people a steer in terms of the market. Obviously, as I mentioned before in the pod, I worked in a similar space before I took up this role several years ago also. So in terms of the careers that are open to students, now obviously everyone who studies a CIMA qualification will be an accountant. And many of our members and students are or do become an accountant. But generally, what type of careers are open to our students or our members as they study this qualification?
It's a good question to start on because it's an exciting one, right? Because there are a real wealth of opportunities out there for CIMA students in terms of where they want to take their career. So the skill set that they're gaining through the qualification, that mix of business, finance, accounting skills really can be applied across a number of different roles across business. So typically what we see in the UK is somebody may start within a finance role. And when I talk about finance, that includes accounting roles within the finance function of a business and organization. And during that time, they may move around the finance function, build different skills, work with different teams outside of the finance function. So maybe working with marketing teams on projects, working with IT and others. And that broadness of experience that they gain really allows them to then, open up the full remit of business in terms of where they can go. So we have members and students work in finance, of course, in a number of roles. People that move as high as becoming a CFO, finance directors, managers. But then we also have people that move outside of finance, because I think the exciting thing about having that skill set, that accountancy background, is every business needs input from finance in terms of making decisions, but also every department within a business needs that financial understanding as well. So we have people that move into marketing management. We have people that work in project management. We have a number of analyst roles that people go into. We have a large number of students, but also members that work in consultancy, so management consultancy, business consultancy, because the skill set of a consultant is about going out and helping clients, right, to solve an issue or to improve a process, to improve performance in a certain area. And that broad skill set that a qualification offers our members, our students, really affords them to do that. So there's not a defined list. There's such an array of different roles, different opportunities across a business that they can go into. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity. An individual, they really steer their career in the direction that they want to go in.
I've always encapsulated what I offer as a qualification is, if you're looking for someone who's got a genuinely strong business acumen, who knows and understands finance and can make and contribute to decisions with a financial, very strong focus, then this is the right skill set, So in the Irish market, from my experience, we had lots of, as you said, your typical finance people doing monthly returns, doing management accounts. But more and more, what I seen before I moved to this role was finance business partners was a big area of focus for companies. So trying to integrate the finance team within other aspects of the business, whether that be manufacturing, technology, IT in particular was a big growth area in Ireland. So decisions that are made will always have an input from finance. So it's a huge diverse industry and sector. And ask any business whether they would want the skill sets of a CIMA accountant in any of their staff, and the answer is going to be clearly yes. I mean, why would you not? It doesn't make much sense. It's a very transferable skill set and very broad skill set. So you can do a lot of different things with the qualification. So in terms of, we were looking at the market right now for jobs and for getting maybe a graduate position, what's the UK market like at the minute?
I won't lie, and I'll be completely honest and say the market is competitive. As you would imagine, there's huge competition out there for opportunities. And when we look to the graduate market, that's going to be exactly the same. But what's interesting is, from looking at research and feedback from graduate recruiters, a lot of the top things that give them, what they say gives them like the biggest headache in the recruitment process is there are too many unsuitable candidates. So a lot of people fall out of the process because the company deems them as unsuitable. From my experience of working with students at university, even school leavers, college leavers, it's not necessarily that the individuals are unsuitable. It's more the fact that they haven't really demonstrated or shown what they can bring to the company in the right way in the recruitment process. And I think that sometimes that's where a lot of the challenge lies. One of the things that I used to say a lot when I was on campus to students was looking for a job as a job in itself. So, when you're in a job and you're working, we'll say 9 to 5, people don't really work 9 to 5 all the time now, but you're going to put in time, you're going to put in effort, dedication in that time for the role that you're undertaking. And I think that same ethic has to be applied when you're looking for jobs. You really need to set aside time to do things properly and we'll go into detail, I guess, in a bit more, but, doing your research and identifying companies that are a right fit for you and exploring the recruitment process. You really do need to really tailor yourself and knuckle yourself down to do things properly. If people used to talk about the scattergun approach, just making 20 applications in an hour and hoping one of them's going to stick. Because of the competitive market, you can't do that anymore. You really need to take a lot of time to do things properly and really show that employer that you're the right fit for them. The other thing that's of interest, though, is it is competitive. However, from a CIMA CGMA perspective, we're still seeing as many opportunities in that graduate market, in that apprenticeship space for individuals as we always have. So there's such a broad mix of different employers, opportunities out there that they can go into. But what's interesting, broadly across the accounting interest space at university, it's actually decreased. So even though it's a competitive market, there is an opportunity there where less students are wanting to go into accountancy. So actually the pipeline is reduced, but actually the number of roles stay the same. So for anyone that's looking at finance and accounting roles, there may be an opportunity there where some individuals now are moving to look into other roles, other opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. From what I have read is the big decrease in the amount of hires has been predominantly in audit and financial accounting. So in that space, there tends to be more automation of routine tasks, predictable processes, and software lends itself perfectly to that. But in the wider context, as we discussed, the types of roles that CIMA accountants tend to navigate towards, there seems to be a low competitive market. There does not seem to be the same decrease in numbers of opportunities, because when you have this skill set, or this is what you pursue in terms of a career, there's more opportunity in terms of differences of roles, and not putting yourself into a certain grouping, as some may see. Some people see accountants, you do self-assessments, you do tax returns, and don't understand the accountancy market. But the market for management accountants still is fairly buoyant, although competitive.
Yeah, 100%.
The thing I think that a lot of young graduates assume is they'll throw a CV or two to a recruiter and get a call within an hour with an offer for a job or an interview. That's highly unrealistic from my experience also. As you say, you need to put the effort in, tailor your CV, show the skills that they're looking for, enhance the things that are important to a specific job, and show some aspirations for a role in that particular sector.
And just to pick up on a point that you've just made there around reduction in roles in certain areas of finance and accounting, I think 100% spot on. You spoke earlier and I spoke earlier about the finance business partner. And I mentioned about how working within finance, but working with other departments, which is essentially what you're saying, right? The finance business partner. I think that's an important point, because technology and automation is impacting any role that anyone's going into now. You can utilize it in positive ways, and it's going to automate a lot of tasks. And I think, to your point, that's where the management accountant really comes to the forefront, because a management accountant isn't that person pulling the numbers out of a system and producing these on spreadsheets. What they're doing is actually they're taking the output of that automation and they're telling that story to the business. They're telling that to the chief exec. They're telling that to, the head of marketing, and they're supporting them in their decision making. So you're quite right. Actually, the management accountant benefits from automation and technology, because it allows them to get that information, that data, those financials quicker, faster, more accurately than ever before. You still need that management accountant to tell that story.
Yeah, the storytelling analogy is used quite a lot now. So you tell other parts of the business the story behind what other people view as the boring numbers or the boring data. I mean, who wants to look? I don't know if anyone gets particularly excited when they pick up a set of financial statements. I personally don't. But the story behind that is the exciting part. And that is obviously the management account.
Yeah, it's the context, isn't it? It's the context of the numbers, and it's bringing together those financials, like you say, bringing together those numbers, stitching that together with the insight from the business of what's happening in the company, what's happening within the industry, and bringing that story together. That's where it comes to life.
So if anyone's looking to find a job and start CIMA, for example, so any young graduates who are in May, June this year, or July this year, for example, where can they find these types of jobs?
There are lots of different places to go and find these jobs. And the great thing that I see with CIMA and CGMA is the fact that there's such a broad range of opportunities out there. Like I said earlier, every business needs finance professionals in their organizations. They all need people to bring together that financial expertise and that business expertise, tell those stories like we've just spoken about. So the broad range of organizations means there are lots of opportunities out there to find an organization that has people in there that are either qualified CIMA members, or they're studying the qualification, or they're bringing people in and they're going to train you up to do the qualification. Because I was so confident in this, just a bit of backstory before I get into where people can find the jobs. When I was in my student recruitment role, I was so confident that there were an abundance of jobs available. I started to post on my LinkedIn profile a job of the day. So I used to do CIMA job of the day. And every single day without fail, I would post a different opportunity. So it could be an apprenticeship, it could have been a graduate program, it could have been a direct entry role. It could have been an internship or a placement for a university student, which would lead on to a graduate program affiliated with CIMA. And I used to post that each and every day of the year, and did that for at least a couple of years until I moved out of the post. And I'll just give a quick shout out to my colleague, Joanne Monk. And if you want to follow her on LinkedIn, she's carried that on my behalf.
So I've noticed that.
Yeah, so she's continuing to post. So if anyone's listening and they're interested in looking at some of these jobs, what I wanted to do to students, I wanted to prove that the opportunities are out there. So I said, if I'm telling you to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to prove to you that the opportunities are out there. So what did I do? I guess what did I do, and what does Joe continue to do today? So it's about searching. So the one bad side of things is there isn't a one-stop shop to look for these job opportunities. It's not like there's one job site and that's where you're going to find all of them. Depending on the employer, they're really going to post their opportunities on different platforms, depending on who they work with, who they partner with, where they're pulling their best recruits from. So LinkedIn is a good starting point. So LinkedIn have a fantastic jobs area where you can search for opportunities, or you always find plenty of CIMA linked and affiliated jobs on there. There's so many different job sites out there, but just some big ones as an example. And again, we're not being sponsored or anything here, but Indeed is typically a very good job site where you can find lots of varied opportunities with CIMA employer partners. For apprenticeships, you have the government apprenticeship search page. So you go directly on there and you can search for level 4 and level 7 CIMA apprenticeship opportunities. But it's just about looking across various different websites and seeing what hits you get. And the other thing that I would say to students when they're looking for jobs as well is it's about consistency of searching. Because of the competitive market, you could see a job come up one day and think, right, I want to apply to that. This is Monday, and you think, okay, I'm going to apply to that on Saturday. You could get to Saturday and that job posting is already gone. So if there's something that you find, then you need to make sure that you apply to that as quickly as possible. So yeah, various job sites. In terms of what I would search various different terms: graduate CIMA, finance internship, finance placement, accounting CIMA, finance graduate, accounting graduate. I try to hit a number of different terms because, again, depending on the employer, they would use different terms when posting their vacancies. I think one thing that I would say to anyone that is looking for these type of jobs is a lot of people assume because we're an accounting qualification that all of the jobs are going to be listed as accounting roles. The vast majority are going to be finance graduate programs, not accounting graduate programs, because you're going to be in the finance department of a business and an organization. So I think that's an important one. A lot of people go looking at accounting and they might see a lot of practice roles. Oh, we're a CIMA. We're typically going to be in the finance side. So various different websites. I would go across a number of different sites and look for jobs. If you've got particular employers that you're interested in as well, so you may know who you already want to work for, you're interested in working, and you can go directly to their websites and you can just search whatever the company's name is: finance graduate scheme, finance opportunities, finance placement, and you'll go directly to a website that will give you a lot more detail about that specific opportunity, program, recruitment process, all of the detail that you ever need. And yeah, then in terms of what's out there, I think I've already alluded to that, but when we're talking about these opportunities, you've got apprenticeships, first of all. So you can go directly after school, you can go after university, you could start an apprenticeship when you're already with an employer. So that's very, very flexible. There's internships out there for people that are at university. So if you want a taster of what it would be like to go on to a graduate program, work in finance, an internship or a placement is a fantastic way for you to get that taste, to see if it's the right fit for you. And there's plenty of those opportunities that are feeders to the graduate program. So if you do a great job on an internship, they're going to fast track you through the recruitment process for their graduate program. Then you've got the graduate programs themselves, and there are literally hundreds of graduate programs in the UK where not only are you going to get a full-time job on typically a 3-year graduate program where you'll be rotated around the finance function, these jobs also offer CIMA sponsorship. So they're going to sponsor you to go through the qualification, give you all of the resources and everything that you need. But then the other alternative is if you are unable to successfully go onto one of these more structured programs, there are lots of direct entry roles into finance. So, graduate roles, you might be unlucky, might not be fortunate enough to get onto one of those. Maybe they're not for you. Some people, graduate programs are not for them. So there are lots of direct ways into businesses. So purely finding a role in finance, finding an entry role in finance. And once you're within that company and you've established yourself, you can then apply for funding internally. So all organizations now are going to give you the opportunity to develop and train. And then it's just a discussion with your manager, with your employer to talk about, well, I'm interested in this qualification. This is what I feel the benefits are, a bit of a business case, right, as to why you feel this would be perfect for them and the role. And a lot of our students have found funding that way of approaching their existing employer or future employer and saying, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go in my career. And typically, most employers are going to be happy to do that because it's enhancing their staff skill set.
Yeah. We often get asked, could you give us a list of your companies that hire CIMA graduates? I mean, does such a list exist even?
No, there isn't. I can remember attempting to do one in the past. I tried to pull together a spreadsheet and list as many employers that I could with links to their graduate programs, internships, opportunities, and yeah, it became a mess trying to keep up with it. But I think everything that we spoke today probably alludes to what we were talking about is management accounting can be applied in so many different ways across so many different organizations. And I think that is the fantastic thing. There's not an industry or sector that I can think of where you wouldn't find a CIMA member or a CIMA student working in there. We've got people working across the board, across all of these. I don't know if I'm allowed to name any names on the podcast, Kevin.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I can list off a whole load. But just as examples, if we go from the NHS in the public sector, probably the biggest recruiter of people in the UK. So you've got the NHS, UK government across various different functions. We have people working there in the charitable sector, Cancer UK, BA Systems and EasyJet within that sector. We work. I'm just looking at an image right now with a whole mix of different employers. Mercedes, Siemens and Sky. What other industries have we got here? ASOS. So, if you're working in fashion, Asda and Tesco's is a couple more examples. We do work with the big four, your KPMG, your EY. We train a lot of their consultants as opposed to their accountants, because I think you mentioned earlier, Kevin, that, their accountants are auditors and work in practice, which we are not, but we train consultants. So we work with those guys there. We work with a whole range of banks like your JP Morgans, your Lloyds banking groups, your Barclays, NatWest, who have a fantastic program. We work in the car industry. So we work with Ford, Bentley, Jaguar Land Rover. Yeah, Royal Mail I'm looking at now, Marks and Spencer's, Mondelez. So I think this is the great thing. And this is something that I used to communicate to students is there's such a broad range of opportunities, which can be overwhelming, but it opens the door to a lot of opportunities. But it's another great thing is you can combine your financial skill set, right? So you might not be in love with accounting and finance, right? But you might be very good at it. So you can take that technical knowledge, expertise, what you gain from the qualification, and you can go and apply that into an industry that you've got a real passion for. So you could be interested in fashion. So you can go and work for your ASOS's, your Burberry's, whoever you want to. You might have an interest in sports, football. Myself and Kevin being avid Arsenal fans. Arsenal have a finance department, and within that they have management accountants and have CIMA members. So you can go and be a management accountant and go and work for your favorite sports team, as an example. And I think that's the beauty of it. You can go and take this across the board and really seek out these opportunities. So if anyone is looking for roles, that's what I would recommend. Just go out there, search a company or an industry that you're interested in. What companies sit within that industry? Do they have finance opportunities? Do they have a graduate program and internship? And that's how you can sort of work your way into an organization.
Yeah, I think for a lot of students, the concept of the milk round, where the big four or the big five or whoever come in along with some regional accountancy firms looking for auditors and people to go into the financial accounting space predominantly. It's mostly audit for milk round. That's an easy way because they come to you, you apply, you then get an interview, you get a job relatively easy. If you've got the right academic and skills profile, clearly they are quite selective. And that's unusual where companies come and look for you. And as you point out, Jason, it does require a little bit of effort. Go and look. And I know it can be a pain for students to have to go and look for jobs in this way. But the right investment of time into doing this will pay huge dividends because you'll end up in the right role, in the right career, with the right prospects, and the right future. I mean, this is not a decision for 3 to 4 years. It's a decision for, you hope, for 20 to 40 years. Depends how long you wish to work. So it's a massive decision, and take the time, take the effort, and actually invest your time. Read about companies, make sure they fit your profile, make sure they fit the ethos, where you want to work. Flexibility is a big thing for a lot of students, et cetera, et cetera. So do the work. It's really, really important. And as you say, I mean, the overwhelming thing is there's so many opportunities and so many companies out there. Where do you begin? That's the big question. The other thing I would add, just don't limit yourself to geography any longer. A lot of employers will hire from any geography, normally within reason and time zone. So if, like me, you're based in Northern Ireland, you could be working for a London-based company, Manchester-based company, Edinburgh, wherever it may be, and vice versa. Companies don't limit the recruitment process specifically now to geography in the way they used to. Some graduate programs may, but many don't.
Yeah. And just about that, about not limiting yourself by location, I would also argue, even though I've spoke about you could find a company that you're really passionate about, based on experience, and my own experience, I would say don't limit yourself to hearing out any opportunity. There may be an organization and an industry, I'm not too sure about that. You know, I like the look of the job, but I'm not sure about that company or industry, or vice versa. I really like the company, but I'm not sure about the opportunity. From experience, I would say be open to any opportunities that come your way. At least hear them out, hear a bit more about them, learn more a bit about them, because you never know where your career path will take you. So when I was at university, I was very quiet and shy. I absolutely dreaded doing presentations.
I find that hard to believe, Jason. I
Well,
have to say.
this is it. Yeah, absolutely. You know, dreaded it. Never wanted to. I was really nervous. And yeah, as you say, Kevin last, because I ended up moving into a role where I'm going out on campus every day and speaking to 200 students and presenting to them. But the only reason I got into that opportunity is because I took a shot. I applied for a temp role. I got that. Once I got into the association, I was open to trying new things. And I thought, how can I stay with this company? I'm only a temp. How can I get a permanent job here? And one of the things I did is I went to our business development manager and said, I'll go and help you out at universities if you want, and I'll go and do presentations. So she said, practice the presentation, come back to me, present to me, and I'll tell you if I feel that you're up to it. When I did that, and I ended up doing that role for 10 years. But if that was presented to me with the mindset I had at university, I would have downplayed it. I would have said, no chance, you're never going to see me doing that role. No interest. No interest in accountancy, no interest in presenting to people. And now we are where we are, where I'm at an organisation I've been with 16 years, absolutely love the organisation, absolutely love the qualification. And it's because I gave it a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And even, some of the company names, I don't know what you were like when I was 21, 22, but I hadn't heard of half the trading names or the parent company names that were recruiting for people. Dropped by a stand in an employment fair, thought this looks boring, not interested. This doesn't look very glamorous, not interested. I mean, some of the biggest companies in the world you will probably not have heard of, to be quite honest. And at that age, there's a certain naivety of, the opportunities that exist. So as you say, come with an open mind. I think that's very important.
Definitely. There are some huge companies, yeah, you're right, that people wouldn't even be aware of, giant companies.
The last thing I'll ask you about, Jason, is employability tips. We always hear about students who go for an interview or for an assessment or maybe a second interview, things that really will excite an employer about you as a possible candidate for employment. What are those things that the employers are looking for?
Well, this is a subject I've not spoken about for a long time, but I could probably talk for a long time on. So at a high level, what I used to say to students is, if we want to simplify things, there are three things that employers are looking for. They're looking for commercially aware candidates, so people that have an understanding of what's going on in business, what's going on in their business, already has a grasp and understanding of what the organization's about and what they're going to be going in to do. They're looking for candidates with relevant transferable skills. So skills that are going to be relevant to the role that they're going into. And that's not necessarily technical, right? Because technical can be developed and learned, but there's more of your broader employability, softer skills, and skills that can be used within a number of roles, skills that you're going to use across all roles. You need to be a good communicator. You need to be a good team player. You need to have good analytical skills and so on and so forth. And the third one, which comes third, but is probably number one, I would say, for a lot of recruiters, and even myself, going by experience, is having passionate and enthusiastic candidates. People that are going into the recruitment process really passionate about wanting to undertake a particular career, wanting to work for a particular organization. From experience of interviewing people, I could have an ideal candidate on paper, but when I'm interviewing them, it just doesn't come across in that way at all, where you could have someone maybe as not as perfect on paper, but when you have that conversation and you meet them in an interview and you feel that enthusiasm, you feel that passion coming through them, that confidence and that connection because of that, that can play a huge, huge part in being successful in the marketplace. So in terms of general tips anyway, I'm going back to some of my old slogans from back on campus. But another thing I used to say was my 6 Ps, was that preparation, planning and practice prevent poor performance. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but if you prepare properly, you plan your approach to organizations that you're going to apply to. And lastly, and probably most importantly, you practice things, because there are a lot of steps to a recruitment process nowadays. And some of it takes practice to understand what you're getting into. That's going to prevent you performing poorly. Now, it doesn't guarantee a job, right? I can't guarantee that. But it's definitely going to give you the best chance possible. You're not going to perform poorly. You're going to give yourself the best possible chance of securing that job. So the biggest step that I used to talk about, and I still recommend it now, this is still an ethos that I would follow, is you've got to start with doing your groundwork. If you do the groundwork properly, it's like building a house, right? You get the foundations right, then it's gonna stay there for life. If you can do the foundations, you're going to set yourself up for success. And a lot of that comes down to that initial research stage. So the first thing, like we've already spoke about, explore all the options that are out there. Start to identify a hit list of jobs, companies that interest you. Are there particularly schemes that you've seen, jobs that you've seen that really interest you? Is it particular industries that you connect with? Is it an industry style? Is it the culture of certain industries that attract you? You need to try and find something that you feel is going to be the best fit for you. Once you've sort of got that hit list of organizations, industries that you want to go into, then you can start to build up that commercial awareness side of things. So you can start to research more about particular organizations, research more about particular roles that you're interested in. What will you actually be doing in that job? How are you going to be adding value to businesses? And as well as sort of looking internally at an organization to understand more about its value, its culture, its behaviors, you also need to understand the broader market and the industry that company resides in. So who are its main competitors? What's the market environment like? What's the market health like? There's so many things that you can do there, right? You can go and follow these organizations on social media and find out what they're doing. You want to build up that body of knowledge, have a real understanding, because all of this is going to come into play as we get into the recruitment process. But then you need to learn about the recruitment process. So you need to do your research. What do I have to do to get this job? What is the recruitment process? What am I going to be assessed on? Is there an interview? Is there 2 interviews? Is it a video interview or face-to-face? Are there any assessments? Is there psychometric tests? Do I need to go to an assessment center? You need to be prepared for this. And the only way that you can do that is through your research. Find out what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be assessed on. And then last but not least, you need to then identify the skills that are in demand for the roles that you're applying to. So what exactly are the skills that this employer is looking for and expecting from me? And typically, right, that's going to be in your job description. It's also going to be within the company's website. There's going to be certain skills that they look for that all of their staff to have. So you build up that knowledge. What skills are they looking for? And then you need to think about, where have I developed those skills already? And a lot of students that I've spoken to over the years, they've developed a hell of a lot of skills. And I was one of these people, developed a hell of a lot of skills, but didn't realize that I had developed those skills. And then if you haven't developed those skills already, consider, what can I be doing now to get those skills developed? So I can add these to my application, I can add these to my CV, and I can talk about them in an interview. And what all of that does, right? All of those stages. So you've identified the companies that you want to apply to. You've researched the company. You've researched the industry. You now know what's going to happen in the recruitment process. You practiced for it. You've identified the skills. Now you tailor your approach to that recruitment process, to that application. So every step of that process is now tailored. So you come out as somebody that's really taken that time to put in a proper application. So that application form or that CV, that should now be tailored. You know what the skills are. So you need to think about, through my life experiences, whether that's work, whether that's hobbies, interests, volunteering work, Where have I developed the skills that the employer has asked for in this job description from the skills that I've identified on a website, and you tailor that accordingly. They're going to ask you, why are you interested in this role? Why are you interested in this company? You use your commercial awareness and what you've researched. You show that passion, that enthusiasm. This is why I want to work for you. This is why I want to do this role. You give all of those reasons there. So you really tailor that application, very, really specific to that organization. And this is why a lot of people fall out of the process, because they have a generic copy and paste template that they will apply to multiple jobs with. It's not going to get through the process, whether it's an individual or whether it's that's probably automated now as well, right? You submit your application and it's looking for keywords. The computer, the AI technology is going to look for keywords in your application, and those keywords are going to be based on what that job description says. So if you're not matching it up, you're not going to get through. But then psychometric tests, that's all about practice, practice, practice. Learn what type of test an employer is going to test you on. There's plenty of free resources online where you can go and practice these tests. I used to also do that on LinkedIn as well. I used to do psychometric test Tuesday, I think it was, or something like that, where I used to post psychometric tests to students so they can practice every week. A lot of that is about practice. Practice makes perfect. When I first started posting them, I was useless. And then I got really good at them. But any of those sort of apps you can download, like brain training and stuff like that, they're really good for things like that. But then your interview, right? Your interview's tailored through the job description, through your research. That's already going to give you an idea of what they're going to ask you. They're going to ask you questions about skills. You already know what the skills are because you've identified them on the job description and on the website. They're going to ask you questions based around commercial awareness, so what you know about the organization, the industry. You've already done that. And they're going to ask you questions to see how passionate is this person about us and about this job. So again, if you've done all of that and you prepped for all of that, that interview should be a breeze. Then it's just a case of interview etiquette, right? Of how you should come across, body language. Is it a video interview? That's a whole other conversation. We could have a whole conversation about that. And then you've got assessment centers, which is the thing that I'll end on, assessment centers. And assessment centers, I guess, is a culmination of all of these things. You've written an application where you've ticked a lot of boxes that they're looking for. You've been to an interview where you've told them a lot of good things that have ticked boxes. So now the assessment center is really bringing to life a lot of those skills that you've said that you've had. So if you said you're a great team player, you're a great communicator, you've got great analytical skills, in the assessment center, they're going to test all of these things with a group of people. And the purpose of that is to see, can you actually demonstrate these skills in a work type scenario? And again, if you've done your research, you know what skills they are. So what you need to think about throughout that assessment center is, how am I demonstrating these skills to the people that are overseeing this activity? So what you'll have is, and I've been fortunate enough to sit in the background and just watch this happen and then listen to feedback afterwards. But, assessors will have a checklist of skills that they're looking at from individuals. Again, it's going to be pretty much based on the job description. And they're going to be looking at you as an individual and considering, well, how is this person in this group activity? How have they demonstrated leadership? How have they demonstrated teamwork? And how have they demonstrated communication skills? You always need to think about that. How am I showing that I'm a good team player to these people that are sitting around us? And you can do that by making sure that you're listening to others. You can, bring in people into conversations that are quiet. You can't look at it as a competition for the role. If the teamwork is a skill, you need to make sure that you bring in other colleagues. So it's all about that demonstration of skills. I could keep on going on, but I will stop there because I appreciate Kevin.
That's very in depth. No, the purpose is to give listeners, where it's appropriate, the right information and insight to this area. So I appreciate you taking the time today, Jason.
Pleasure.
There'll be more information on this topic via the show notes as usual. To view them, just click on the episode's info icon in the podcast app on your smartphone or tablet, or open the episode in your web browser on your computer. For more information, go to AICPA-CIMA.com or enroll.cgma.org website. And thank you for listening. If you know a friend or colleague that could use this information, feel free to share it with them. Obviously, there'll be the usual sharing buttons on the podcast app. That's it for now. We'll have another podcast available next month. From Jason and myself, I just wish all listeners to have a good day. Thank you.
This content is designed to provide illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the AICPA, the Association, or CIMA. It is provided with the understanding that they are not engaged in offering legal, accounting or other professional services. If such advice or expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. The AICPA, the Association and CIMA make no representations, warranties or guarantees as to, and assume no responsibility for, the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use of, reference to or reliance on such material.